ESPN's Jordan Reid joins me to break down the battle for QB1 of the 2027 NFL Draft and why it's currently a two-man race.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I'm Damian Parson, and today with me I have a special guest from ESPN, my brother Jordan Reid. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Join all the action at FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a home run this MLB season. On today's episode, it's all about the quarterbacks with my brother, a former quarterback. We're going to talk about, is this the deepest quarterback class we've seen in recent years? We're going to talk about some sleeper quarterbacks, those guys, those next tier guys. But of course, we're kicking it off with who's really in the conversation for QB1. JR, talk to us, man. You've done up the summer scouting, so have we here on Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. This quarterback class is a lot of fun. But who really is, in your opinion, heading into the college football season, the kind of guy to be the QB1 for this class?
Well, first, just thanks for allowing me to come on, man. I guess I can be considered an everydayer. I always like listening to you and Keith all the time, and you guys get into some heated discussion. So whenever I'm out exercising or on the exercise bike or out walking the neighborhood, I always make sure to tap in with you guys every single week. But this quarterback class is really fascinating, man. And just talking to scouts and executives over the summer, that's really what I do. I spend my time talking to those guys and, of course, watching tape myself. The two that always come up is Dante Moore of Oregon and Arch Manning of Texas. Those are the two that a lot of people are in agreement on as far as who were the guys that excite you the most coming into the year. And this similar path as far as like how they got here, Dante obviously started at UCLA 5 games, then he comes over to Oregon. First year starter last year. He showed some really good things, I thought. Very natural at the position. That's what you really notice about Dante. Natural thrower, really clean footwork, very good release. He's very aware of what's going on and how he operates that Oregon offense. And, you know, the player that comes up a lot when comparing him to just talking about when he was coming out of college is CJ Stroud. I think him and CJ are very similar stylistically, very natural passers, clean releases, clean delivery, see the field really well. But also as far as the weaknesses or limitations, the similar things that we said about CJ coming out of Ohio State are very similar to what we're saying about Dante going into this year. And if you think about it, the big question about CJ was he doesn't use his mobility enough, and he has to play better in big games. And we're saying the same exact things about Dante. Just going back to last year, I didn't think he played well in either Indiana game. The Texas Tech game, I thought the stats were good, but the production, as far as on the tape, I thought it was very questionable as far as some of the decision-making that he had. And then the decision to go back. There was a lot of mixed opinions about that as well. But one thing I will say about Dante and just quarterbacks in general, I've never heard anybody say, oh, he's played too much football.
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody say that about a quarterback. But on the inverse, when somebody doesn't work out on the NFL, what is the first thing we always bring up? He didn't play enough football, or he didn't have enough experience. And him having 20 starts going into this year, he's going to get, if he stays healthy, he's going to get over that magical 30-game threshold that a lot of people love to see from these quarterbacks. So going back to school, I thought was the perfect decision for him. Now he just has to play better in those big games. And if he does end up playing better in those big games, he's going to position himself to be the number 1 overall pick. So Dante Moore, I'm really excited to see. But new play caller, Will Stein is gone to Kentucky. So that's something that is very key to watch with him. Most of his weapons are back outside of Kenyon Sadiq, DeCorian Moore. A lot of people are excited about him. They have some other players. Evan Stewart is back as well off the injury that he suffered. New tight end,
Jamari Johnson,
who probably could be even better than the one that just went in the first round, which is crazy to say. So how quickly does he mesh with this new core with that offense? I think that's something that's really key to watch along with the play caller. Now with Arch Manning, a player that is going to be quote unquote polarizing to a lot of people. But to me, I saw a player that got better as the season went along. And the litmus test of Arch Manning, if you're asking somebody how they feel about him, is did you watch him after the Ohio State game? Just because a lot of people turned the TV off after they saw him play against Ohio State. And they just basically said, I'm not a fan of this guy just because of what he showed after that game. But the heightened expectations for Arch, he obviously did not meet those mountainous expectations. after that game. So it was a disappointing start, and I didn't think he played well through the first month of the season. But once mid to late October got here, he played against Oklahoma. I thought he was great in the Red River rivalry. The Florida game was the one that I was blown away by how he just battled and kept making throws in that game. But what you noticed during the back end of the season and then the bowl game, the Cheez-It Bowl against Michigan, the light really started to turn on for him. And this is the player that a lot of people thought we were going to get. The beginning of the season really turned on for him at the end of the season. So I like the momentum that he's really built up throughout the back end of the season going into this season. But what gives me a lot of hope about Arch has nothing to do with him, honestly. And I say that because it's the personnel around him. Just look at the personnel that's been revamped at Texas. The backfield was not explosive at all last year with Trey Wisner and CJ Baxter. You bring in Raleek Brown from Arizona State and then also Hollywood Smothers from NC State. So he's going to be able to lean on that run game a little bit more than what he was able to do last year. And the big component that me personally I thought was missing from their offense was that they did not have a number one receiver. As much as we like Ryan Wingo, he's more serviceable as a complementary piece, in my opinion. So you go out, you get a true number one dog and Cam Coleman, who I think is going to explode in this Texas offense, along with Ryan Wingo. Now the pieces around Arch are much better. They revamped the offensive line. Trevor Gooseby is going to be back. Melvin Siani from Wake Forest, who I think has a potential to be a top 50 pick before it's all said and done. So you have the bookend tackles. Brandon Baker slides inside the guard now. So I think the infrastructure is better around the Arch now. And that's gonna ease a lot of things off of his plate now. Just because early on in the season, you saw the mechanical flaws, you saw some of the things that I thought he needed to clean up because he was forcing a lot of things because he was trying to overcompensate the lack of surroundings that he had. So I'm excited to see him this year, man. I think he's gonna have a really good year, just because of the pieces around him are better. And then this is going to be his third year in the system now, and he's the unquestioned quarterback one going into this season from just a training camp perspective. He knows that he's the guy coming into the year.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing Arch. And I think I did an episode during the season. I think it was the Mississippi State game where I really felt that light came on for Arch, where it was just I think they went into overtime. You saw him anticipating throws, the ball placement, the accuracy was there. And like you said, as the season went on, he just got better. But also he started using his athleticism a lot more as the season went on. I think it was a Texas A&M game, right? The 34-yard run in the fourth quarter. Just him, I think they said he's hit like 20 plus miles per hour on the GPS and everything like that. Like he's a legitimate athlete at 6'4", 6'5", 200 plus pounds with the arm strength and talent that he has. And now it's all about putting it together, taking that stretch to close the season and start like that and to keep it going for a full season. Getting Cam Coleman is big. We broke down Cam Coleman's game a couple weeks ago when we started with wide receivers, and I truly believe this guy has top 15 potential. Depending on how many quarterbacks actually do come out, he might sneak his way into the top 10. I think he's an outstanding talent. I think if I remember correctly, I think Keith might have been Dez Bryant was one of the comps that he threw out for Cam Coleman, either Dez or George Pickens. It was one of those two. Might have been both, honestly. But definitely looking forward to seeing those two mature together. And I'm a big fan of Hollywood Smothers. Watched him in high school and saw how talented he was there. Went to NC State and played well in that offense. Now going into Steve Sarkisian's offense with Raleek Brown, like that explosiveness in that backfield is going to be big. And now you're talking about being able to lean on the run, get some play action, RPO stuff going where, hey, Arch, it's not all on you anymore. And being able, I like to, the phrase I always like to say, Jordan, is I want my quarterbacks, if you could be Superman, great. But if you can come into the game, be Clark Kent, I'm fine with that too. And I want to build my team just for that exact reason. And I want to go to Dante Moore real quick before we transition and everything to the next topic. But with Dante Moore, man, the CJ Stroud, the natural thrower, the poise that he played with for a lot of the season, I definitely want to see him take that step, in those big games, because I think they play both Ohio State and Michigan. I know they play Ohio State, I believe, this season. Like, he's going to have some big tests this year. And me and you talked about it when, we text when that decision, I wanted him to come out, and that was just kind of the greedy NFL draft analyst in me wanting him to come out for the 2026 NFL draft to pair with Fernando Mendoza. But you definitely talked me off the ledge. You was like, hey, he needs a little bit more experience and everything. And I was like, man, but the question I asked for you as a former quarterback real quick is like, when you talk about the main thing I think that I took away from his game that from a concern standpoint is like handling and navigating that pressure in the backfield, right? Like we talked about Mendoza. Mendoza was staying 10 toes, take the shot and rip the throw. I didn't see that type of confidence from a Dante Moore. Is that something that can be instilled through more experience, or is that just a mentality?
I think it's a little bit of both, honestly, and you're 100% spot on. And you might be looking at my notes from Dante Moore, my scouting report on Dante Moore, just because pocket toughness was one of the biggest things that I wanted to see more from him. Sometimes he would just spike the ball in the ground or he would just check down prematurely. So add on top of that, another thing I want to see him do is be more aggressive with certain throws as far as testing tight windows. A lot of times he would kind of question his arm or question if he had the arm strength to test those tight windows. And there may be a guy open, on the seam or whatever, but he would just say, I'm going to just check the ball down here. I want to see him test those tight windows from time to time. Like, it's okay, man. Like, everybody hates turnovers, but we want to see you be aggressive and take those tight window throws and just see what the limitations are for your arm and just test it from time to time. A lot of times he turns down or being overly conservative with a lot of things. You can really tell like which plays he's comfortable with or what they've repped a lot throughout the week. But when they had to go outside of those scripted plays, you can tell that he would be overly conservative about a lot of those things. So I want to see, as you mentioned, the pocket toughness get better with him this year. Stand in there and take some shots. As a quarterback, you're going to come out of the games dirty, man. Like, your uniform is going to be dirty in a lot of games. So there's going to be some times where you have to take those big shots from time to time. So I want to see him improve that pocket toughness, but also be more aggressive with testing some of those tight window throws.
Absolutely. Absolutely, guys. Coming up next, man, we're going to talk about the kind of next tier guys. Lenorris Sellers, talk about CJ Carr. There's a lot of quarterbacks in this class that while we talk about those guys, Arch and Dante Moore in the QB1 race, who's right behind them, who can sneak themselves into that QB1 race. We'll talk about those sleepers coming up next. The Locked On NFL Draft Podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's going to hit a home run today, FanDuel's giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick for who you think will hit a home run in their game. If you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with every day's games, whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on matchups across the league. And I'm telling you right now, it's sometimes just as simple as a hitter who's been on the hot streak, a favorable pitching matchup, or even a ballpark that tends to give up home runs. Those are always the first things I look at when I'm making my daily dingers picks. So are you ready to play your game today? Join all the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences with FanDuel, the official partner of the MLB. All right, Jordan, man, we got to talk about the sleeper quarterback. So it's kind of tier 2 guys. And one guy for me that me and Keith talked about, and honestly, I've kind of called my shot on him. I love Darian Mensah from going to Miami, who played at Duke and played at Tulane. The accuracy I really like about him. There's mobility to his game and everything. I remember watching the Clemson game, and it didn't matter what Clemson defensively threw at him, he had an answer for it. And I love the pre to post snap work I saw from pocket navigation. And I just feel like this is a guy that plays with immense poise under pressure in those high leverage moments, especially with a team at Duke last year that this was not a robust group in terms of talent, right? Like you weren't, I mean, he's at Miami now. He wasn't at Miami last year with Malachi Toney and Mark Fletcher and that defense and all those guys. Talk to us a little bit about starting with Darian Mensah and what you saw from him.
He plays the game what I like to call a glass case, man. Like, nothing phases this dude at all. And you hit the nail on the head as far as like just how poised he plays from the pocket. Very clean mechanics, very clean delivery as well. Sees the field really well as well. And as you mentioned, he didn't have anybody to throw to at Duke outside of Cooper Barkade, who's at Miami with him now. But we can be honest, Duke doesn't have the best athletes on either side of the ball as far as who he's throwing to. But I think the correlation to make with Mensah is that we've seen this with Miami already. We saw it with Cam Ward and his ascension. We saw it with Carson Beck and how he was able to revitalize his stock Darian Mensah steps into a very similar situation of where they've been able to catapult the draft stock of the quarterback that steps right into that situation. And there's no weaknesses on this offense from a weapon standpoint. Now, the offensive line, they do have to revamp that. So there may be some bumps and bruises along the way early on, but he has the mobility to withstand that situation. Now, the one area or the two areas I would like to say I would like to see him clean up is the ball security. He had 8 fumbles in the pocket last year. So when teams were able to get to him, he had a hard time hanging onto the football. So the ball security has to get better. And he's what I call a loft and locate type of thrower. And the best way to make this analogy is that all of us are video game guys. You would like to see him mash that button down a little bit harder as opposed to tapping the button. A lot of times he just taps the button when it's required for him to mash the button. So I want to see him drive the ball more consistently. And Shannon Dawson does a great job with the offense and the quarterbacks. I'm really interested to see how he builds this offense around Darian Mensah. But that Clemson game, October 3rd, I'm going to have that one circled. That's going to be a big game for Miami. I'm looking forward to seeing him play in that one. But I think he's somebody that is in position to be a huge riser, specifically into the first round.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that one. One of the guys that talking about this next tier, Trinidad Chambliss. And I remember it's crazy because people, our everydayers who was with us last college football season, a lot of them had jumped in the comments and like, man, you guys made me feel like the smartest man in the room because you were the first people I heard talk about Trinidad Chambliss after he started the first 2 games, like weeks 3 and 4 for Austin Simmons. And my comp for him immediate was Russell Wilson. I was like, I see a lot of Russell Wilson with this young man's game. This was a guy I felt like, and you disagree with me if you do. I was like, man, strike while the iron is hot. Like it felt like his stock was blazing going into this draft cycle. And then he fought for the injunction. He fought with the courts. He fought with the NCAA to go back. What's your take and your outlook on Trinidad Chambliss as an NFL draft prospect?
But once again, it goes back to the saying of I've never heard anybody say a quarterback has played too much football. That's fair. I'm never going to complain about a quarterback if he wants to go back to school. And I think what Trinidad was thinking was I can make a lot of money at Ole Miss while gaining more experience as opposed to, maybe being a day 2 or day 3 draft prospect, not controlling where potentially I could land and landing into a situation where I'm going to be a backup and may never even get my shot. Right. So going back to Ole Miss, gaining more experience while making multiple millions of dollars as a starting quarterback, and then coming back with pretty much everybody that I had on that offense outside of Deshaun Stribling. So I don't think it's a situation of where he made a bad decision. I think it's a situation of where he wanted to prove himself again in the SEC on the Division I level, coming from where he wasn't even the starting quarterback coming into the year. Right. So nobody really even knew who he was coming into the year because Austin Simmons had that job. He was a starter for the first, 3 games of the season last year. So with Trinidad, man, he's somebody that I didn't know I was going to like him as much as I did going into the tape when studying him, even going back to his tape at Ferris State. He's somebody that's just electric, man. He's like if Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson had a baby together, he's just a mixture of both of them. Now, he doesn't have the arm power that Kyler had. I think his arm is really similar to Russ. But with those shorter quarterbacks, the one thing that I want to see them do is how consistent are they over the middle of the field? Just because that's always going to be the big question mark is, yes, he can throw outside the numbers, outside the hashes, but can he consistently win throwing balls over the middle of the field? That's why early Russ was able to overcome a lot of the shortcomings that he had. And we know Kyler and the arm that he has, he's able to drive the ball consistently over the middle of the field. And Drew Brees was great over the middle of the field, no question about that. So with these shorter quarterbacks, can they see over the middle of the field? And Trinidad checks that box easily. So the big thing for Trinidad is that how does he look after Lane Kiffin? Because that is the mastermind leaving Oxford, Mississippi now. So how does he look with Lane Kiffin gone now? And can he operate this offense in the same way post Lane Kiffin? So if he's able to answer that question, man, I said this in my piece that came out on ESPN.com last week, a lot of people are comfortable taking him in the back end of the first round. A lot of scouts have told me that, and I don't have no pushback based on what I've seen on the tape, just because he's one of those guys that I call him a yes, but prospect. You're saying a lot of things, he's short, he comes from the Division II level, but he's been able to overcome all of these things in every single chapter of his career. he's been able to sustain and withstand all the question marks that you had about him. So I'm really excited to see him play this year.
Me too. I think, the two matchups against Georgia, he did well the first matchup up until the fourth quarter where Georgia, their defense locked in and they were able to really stifle and slow down his offense. Then you get to the college football playoff game and he never, I saw a player that watched the film and saw the mistakes he made and said, I'm not going to make those mistakes again. And it was like, whether it's becoming a playmaker with my legs, extending plays, whatever it is, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to help my team convert these third downs in the fourth quarter, those money downs in those high pressure moments. Heck, the slot fade ball to DeJon Stribling to really get them in the down the field when they needed to, that big shot. I love what I was able to see from him going from, because again, when you're playing the same opponent twice, what mistakes did you make in the first game that you don't carry into the second game? That was a big thing for me. This guy is a polarizing guy that I want to talk to you about, Julian Sayin. And, a lot of people, like, man, he's, the accuracy, like, that's his A trait, is the accuracy, the ball placement. He's, I think he's listed at 6'2", and everything. So he's not the biggest guy, but he plays well, right? And he plays well for Ryan Day and for that offense. That's a guy I struggle with, though, because I'm just like, I've gotten to a place scouting quarterbacks where I ask the question, you are in a really good situation. If you're drafted as a top 10 pick, we've seen it kind of with Bryce Young and the Panthers. You go from Alabama, where you have all these 4 and 5 stars, you go to Carolina, where the team is not great. It exposes some things for the player itself. It's like, are you a truck? We use the term trucks and trailers, right? What's your thoughts on Julian Sayin? Because I'm like, man, like, I don't want to see nothing happen to Jeremiah Smith, but you're throwing to arguably the best player in the class.
Yeah, I mean, and I tweeted this out, I believe, last week, just talking to scouts and executives. The two most polarizing quarterbacks in this upcoming class was Sayin and Sellers. And I'll start with Sayin. Yeah. He's in a great setup right now. And you talk about having Cardinal Tate on one side and Jeremiah Smith, two guys that one we've seen go in the top 5 already, and another that's going to go top 5 in this upcoming draft. So the setup is really good for him. The running game was good with Bo Jackson, who was a good college running back. The offensive line was good at times last year. And then we know it's Ohio State, so they're going to put points on the board. But as one executive put to me, there's a baseline level of traits that you need to be considered or just to crack that upper tier, like the Mahomeses, the Josh Allens, the Lamar Jackson, those type guys that we've seen be perennial all-pro or upper tier type of quarterbacks year in and year out. With Sayin, we can be honest, he's never going to crack that tier just because he doesn't have the traits that those guys have. So the thing with him is that he's going to always have to be in a near perfect surrounding. So with him, is he always going to be in that near perfect surrounding? And it's going to be dependent upon where he is drafted. So if he is drafted, let's say if he was drafted to Arizona this year, the surroundings obviously are not optimal with Arizona from a surrounding or key piece standpoint. So with him, it's just, what is your tolerance for the traits that he does have? And then just how comfortable are you with him in that situation? I mean, we've seen it with Bryce Young. We've seen it with some smaller quarterbacks, but he doesn't have the mobility that Bryce has. He doesn't have the mobility or the arm power that Kyler has. I don't even think he has the baseline level of traits that Russell Wilson has when he was coming out of Wisconsin. So it's just, how much can you tolerate the baseline level of traits that he does have, and then just the situation that he is drafted in. Now, let's talk about the positives of him, just because we're not going to knock everybody for the things that they do lack. The accuracy is exceptional with him. I think it is very pinpoint. He can put the ball wherever he wants to. I think as far as throwing down the field, he's very accurate. But when he has to drive the ball, that's where the questions come in with Julian Sayin. But the accuracy, the field vision are really good. I want to see the mobility be utilized more, just because I don't think he's a statue. I think he can run when he wants to. So there is things that are working in his favor. The big question in the draft room is going to be, how high do you take a player like this? I think that's going to be the big debate with Julian Sayin.
No, 100%. But we're going to talk about Lenorris Sellers a little bit, because again, we got to talk about how deep this quarterback class is, because there's a few guys we haven't even gotten into. So coming up next, guys, we're going to talk about how deep it's this quarterback class. It's one of the deeper groups and more talented groups we've seen over the last decade or so. We'll talk about that coming up next. There are more live events than ever we're seeing right now. Games, concerts, comedy shows, festivals. The hard part usually isn't deciding where I want to go. It's actually getting tickets to the show. Between long wait times, confusing checkout processes, and surprise fees, buying tickets can sometimes feel way harder than it should be. And that's why so many fans are turning to Game Time. The app is built to make buying tickets simple with upfront pricing, seat views before you buy, and exclusive saving opportunities that help you get to the events you want without the hassle. And my biggest pet peeve, the thing I hate most, is when I think I found that great deal, the best deal, and I get all the way to checkout, that price suddenly just skyrockets, completely different looking price. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets to every type of event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Thanks for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen of the day, and thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in America. It's all because of you, our everydayers. Here with Jordan Reid out of ESPN, my guy, my brother, man. Let's keep talking about it. Deepest quarterback class. You mentioned Lenorris Sellers and how he's, per the NFL execs, such a polarizing player. The size, the arm talent, the mobility. I think was it 2 years ago he had that when they beat Clemson. I believe they beat Clemson either, was it at home or on the road? Either way. But he had that like just crazy run, north of the 50. We breaks through some tackles, and then he gets upfield, makes a couple of guys, and then you see the speed and burst and acceleration to just outrun angles. And of course, the most recent player of this archetype is Anthony Richardson, where a lot of people it leaves a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, man. What's your take on Lenorris Sellers right now? What do you love about his game, and what does he need to improve on?
It's a love-hate relationship, and it's not just me; it's everybody in the league as well. Either you love him, I don't like to use the word hate, or you dislike him. There is no in between with Lenorris Sellers. And when I say, like, if we were to poll 20 executives, it literally would be a 10-10 split on being high and low on him. But with Lenorris, I'm at South Carolina very frequently throughout the year, so I've had an opportunity to see him a lot of times up close. Every bit of, 6'3", 240 plus pounds, has the build that you love to see at the position. But it's just consistently inconsistent right now with every single part of his game. And he's one of those players that he can put that Superman cape on whenever you want him to, and he can make those miraculous throws. But there's a lot of head-scratching plays mixed in between. But the one area I want to see him improve in is just the processing. I thought he saw a lot of things a second or two too late. And we can be honest, there's a lot of variables that led to that, whether it's the play caller or offensive line that was just atrocious last year that didn't give him a chance in games. So they spent a lot of money in the portal as far as the offensive line. They have Jacarius Pete coming over from NC State to South Carolina, who's one of the better offensive tackles in this year's class. They have a new play caller in Kendall Briles, who's very experienced. And I think his system fits better than what they were trying to do with fitting him in Mike Shula's system. But the one thing that I want to see Lenorris do better, one is the processing, but also from Kendall Briles' standpoint is that just let him be him. I thought a lot of times they were trying to program him to be a pocket passer. And what I mean by that is forcing him to go 1, 2, 3, 4 on this progression, as opposed to, hey, 1, 2, if nothing's there, take off and run. Just because that's when Lenorris is at his best, when he can just be him and not be programmed to be a pocket passer. And I thought that's what South Carolina was trying to make him do too much of last year. And with that decimated offensive line that just didn't give him a chance, he was trying to be a pocket passer. And I mean, the one game that I just like cut off and couldn't watch no more was LSU. Like, he was getting destroyed in that game because he was trying to be a pocket passer and he was just being programmed to go through these different progressions, and they just didn't allow him to be him. So if I was giving advice to Kendall Briles and Lenorris Sellers, is that, hey, man, if you want to get off of this progression really quickly and take off for a 60-yard run, go ahead and do it. Yeah. But with the caveat being in the NFL is going to make his projection a little bit harder just because he is a project. There's no doubting about that. You're going to have to be really patient with him. And that's why I said he's going to be a very polarizing prospect, just because it all comes down to how much job security does the front office that selects him have to develop him. but also it's going to take some time to develop him as well, just because he's not going to be as polished as some of the other names that we've talked about already.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. And I think that is a very key statement, because then you look at like you talk about the offensive line struggles, when you're telling the guy to stay to the pocket and go through progressions. Well, I don't have the time, right? So it's like I need to invoke those Superman traits and become Superman, right? And not have to be Clark Kent. Let me jump in the phone booth, put that costume on real quick, and make the plays that can get us into winning, make the game-changing plays that can help push us to winning football games, especially closer football games, because this is still a team that has some talent on there in South Carolina. It's all about allowing him to really be the truck that he is in terms of physically. But I agree with you. He is a project. And again, I think with the Anthony Richardson stuff, it's going to make it more difficult for him just to be able to shake that off. Me and Keith always talk about how certain archetypes, if the guys before you, the guys right before you, if they're playing well, teams will buy in on it, right? Like it's fine. Kyler Murray, that's all I look at. Kyler Murray and like Bryce Young, those kind of shorter quarterbacks. You guys, it depends on how you play this year. You can negatively or positively impact a Trinidad Chambliss, right? Like it just is what it is and stuff like that. So like with A-Rich and how things went in Indianapolis, yeah, it makes it a little bit harder to sell a Lenorris Sellers to a fan base as a general manager and say we're going to take him top 10, but we're going to sit him and like we have a plan. It just makes things a little bit difficult. One guy I want to close out with, CJ Carr from Notre Dame. A natural thrower of the football, another 6'2", 6'3" quarterback, I think listed as last year, first year starter. They had Jeremiah Love, and I think he's got Jaden Greathouse. You got Eli Raridan, good offensive line and everything last year. Malachi Fields. I like what I've seen from him on tape, and I think that there's some good traits, especially accuracy, ball placement, and everything. And he's actually more mobile than I thought he would have been when I turned on the tape. What did you like about him as we get ready to close?
Just a clean prospect, man. Like there's no hiccups or anything like that in his game. I think a lot of it is good, not great with him from a traits standpoint, but the accuracy is really good. Very similar to a lot of players like Trinidad, like we said, didn't even know that he was going to be the QB1 coming into the year. Right. He was in the training camp battle last year. So small sample size, only has started 12 career games, but in those 12, he showed a lot of promise. But there's a lot of good, not great with CJ, but I want to see that good turn into great with him, just because, as you mentioned, there's a lot of production that walked out the door at Notre Dame. So he's going to have to be the catalyst of that offense. He can't do what I like to call just camouflage now. He has to go out and be the standout of that offense. You lose 2 first-round running backs, as you mentioned. Malachi Fields is gone. Eli Raridan is gone. So a lot of production is gone out the door. So now he has to be the truck of that offense, as you mentioned. There's no more camouflage when they're being the trailer or the passenger in the car anymore. Right. Now you have to be the driver of that car. So now is he going to be able to operate and be the truck of that Notre Dame offense, just because I think they're going to be a title game favorite going into the year. And a big reason behind that is CJ Carr. And if he's able to take that next level or that next step in his game, I definitely think he's capable of being a top 10 pick.
No, 100%, man. This conversation can go a lot further because there's still more quarterbacks that we still hadn't gotten to, but definitely going to do this again. But, guys, as always, appreciate my boy Jordan Reid out of ESPN coming on to the show. And it's going to be, it might be a little bit more of a staple guest for us this football season. Got to get him on to talk some ball with me, Keith, and we've got some things in the works. We're talking through some things, guys. So as always, man, JR, appreciate you coming in, tapping in with us, and thank you for being there every day yourself, man, and listening to me and Keith, just kind of talk ball every day. We appreciate you, bro. Can't wait to have more conversations like these. But as always, guys, go subscribe, follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.